Hi friends! It's our last art lesson of November before Thanksgiving, and we've had lots of opportunity to give thanks this month, haven't we? Well, today we're all going to give thanks because of how rich we are. Now you might be shaking your head and thinking, Mrs. Burke, how can you say that? Well, I'm going to say it again. I am rich, but not rich in the way that you might think. Today, we are going to read a book that is maybe one of my new favorite books of all times, about how to give thanks for riches that are maybe a little unexpected. This is our book. It's called The Table Where Rich People Sit. And I think it's one of the best stories I've read in a really long time. But I love the illustrations in this book. The illustrator is a man named Peter Parnall, and I just want you to pay attention. The story is a little longer than most of the stories that we have read, but it's so good, and the pictures are so gorgeous. I'll just give you a little sneak peek before we start. I want you to just pay attention to how Mr. Parnall illustrates. Let me show you one of my favorites. As we're reading, I want you to notice, here I'm out of the picture, how he uses lines. That his lines take your eye on an adventure off of the page. They move your eye on a journey. And so as you're listening to the story, I want you to let your eyes go on an adventure through the page. I want you to pay attention to two things in the illustrations. Pay attention to the lines and pay attention to the color. And then we are going to create some art similar to Mr. Parnall's art in this book. Enjoy the story with me. The Table Where Rich People Sit by Byrd Baylor. Pictures by Peter Parnall. As you listen, I want you to really pay attention to the illustrations. They are some of the most beautiful illustrations I have seen in a picture book in a long time. They're really interesting. The way that Peter Parnall uses white space and lines and very simple colors. As we read it, there are a lot of words on the page, more than we're used to. But the pictures are so interesting that I want you to let your eye follow the lines as I read. Let your eye go on an adventure through the book as we read this wonderful story together. Are you noticing the way that the lines lead your eye on an adventure? Let's start the story. If you could see us sitting here at our old scratched up homemade kitchen table, you'd know that we aren't rich. But my father is trying to tell us we are. Doesn't he notice my worn out shoes? Or that my little brother has patches on the pants he wears to first grade? And why does he think that old rattletrap truck is parked by our door? You can't fool me, I say. We're poor. Would rich people sit at a table like this? My mother sort of pats the table and she says, well, we're rich and we sit here every day. Sometimes I think I'm the only one in my whole family who is really sensible. Maybe I should mention to my parents. Maybe I should mention that my parents made this table out of lumber somebody else threw away. They even had a celebration when they finished it. Now understand, I like this table fine. All I'm saying is you can tell it didn't come from a furniture store. It doesn't look like a table where rich people would sit. But my mother thinks if all the rulers of the world could gather together at a friendly wooden table in somebody's kitchen, they would solve their arguments in half the time. And my father says it wouldn't hurt to have a lot of cookies piled up on a nice blue plate that everyone could reach without asking. But tonight, it's our kitchen, and our argument, and our family meeting, and our very spicy ginger cookies piled up on my mother's one good blue flowered plate exactly in the center of the table. I'm the one who called the meeting, and the subject is money. And I say we don't have enough of it. I tell my parents they should both get better jobs so we could buy a lot of nice new things. I tell them I look worse than anyone in school. I hate to bring this up, I say, but it would help if you both had a little more ambition. They look surprised. You can see they never think about the things we need. Right here, I might as well admit that my parents have some strange ideas about working. They think the only jobs worth having are jobs outdoors. They want cliffs or canyons or desert or mountains around them wherever they work. They even want a good view of the sky. They always work together, and their favorite thing is panning gold, piling us into that beat-up truck and heading for the rocky desert or back in some narrow mountain gully where all the roads are just coyote trails. They love to walk the wide arroyos and dry stream beds where little flecks of gold are found. They used to tell us that the truck knew just which roads to take and that coyotes showed them where to look for gold. But I never did believe it. After a month or two out there, they always had a little bit of gold to sell. But you can tell it never made them rich. As far as I can see, it was just an excuse to camp in some beautiful wild place again. They don't mind planting fields of sweet corn or alfalfa. They like to pick chili and squash and tomatoes. They'll even put up strong fences or train wild young horses. But they say they can't stand to be cooped up indoors. So now, of course, my dad is asking, how many people are as lucky as we are? But I've called this meeting and I say, I bet you could make more money working in a building somewhere in town. Remember our number one rule, he says. We have to see the sky. You could look through it at a window, I say. But they won't even think about it. Do you see what I mean about being the sensible one? Finally, my mother says, all right, mountain girl, we're going to explain how we figure our money. You be the bookkeeper tonight. She hands us each a pencil and some yellow paper. She gives some to my little brother too, though he'll just sit there pretending to write when we write, or he'll draw people dancing up in the sky. And by the way, my name's not really Mountain Girl. They call me that because I was born in a cabin on the side of a mountain where they were looking for gold one summertime in Arizona. They say it was the most magical place, the most beautiful mountain they ever climbed. Maybe it was, but you know how those two exaggerate. Anyway, they wanted my first sight to be that mountainside, so they held me up outdoors at sunrise when I was just about 8 minutes old. The truth is, I still like sunrise quite a lot. And my little brother, they call him Ocean Boy. They say since I already had the best mountain for my first sight, they thought they ought to find the most beautiful ocean for him. I think they went all over Mexico looking for a place where ocean touches jungle. And they had to find a certain kind of purple-blue night sky and the exact green waves they like. They held him up to see those waves for his first sight. Someday we're all going back to his green ocean and my high mountain. But for now, even though they claim to be so rich, they can't take us anywhere at all. No wonder I had to call this meeting about money. Can you believe my father is sitting here looking me straight in the eye and saying, "But Mountain Girl, I thought you knew how rich we are." I say, we can't get very far in this discussion if you won't even admit that we're poor. I'll prove it to you right now, he says. Let's make a list of the money we can earn in a year. How much is that? I ask. I'll write it down. But he says, not so fast. We have a lot of things to think about before we add them up. What kind of things? My mother says, we don't just take our pay in cash, you know. We have a special plan so we get paid in sunsets too, and in having time to hike around the canyons and look for eagle nests. But I say, can you give me one single number to write down on this paper? So we start with $20,000. That's how much my father says it's worth to him to work outdoors, where he can see the sky all day and feel the wind and smell rain an hour before it's really raining. He says it's worth that much to be where, if he feels like singing, he can sing out loud and no one will mind. I have just written 20,000 when my mother says, you'd better make that 30,000 because it's worth at least another 10 to overhear coyotes howling back in the hills. So I write 30,000. Then she remembers they like to see long distances and faraway mountains that change color about 10 times a day. That's worth another $5,000 to me, she says. I'm not surprised because my mother claims to be an expert on mountain shadows in the desert. She says she can tell time by the way those colors change from dawn to dark. I scratch out what I had and write $35,000. My father thinks of something else. When a cactus blooms, you should be there to watch it, because it might be a color you won't see again any other day of your life. How much would you say that color is worth? 50 cents? My brother asked. But they decide on another 5,000. So now I write $40,000. But I'd forgotten how much my father likes to make bird sounds. He can copy any bird, but he's best at white-winged doves and ravens and red-tailed hawks and quail. He's good at eagles too and great-horned owls. So of course he has to add another 10,000 for having both day birds and night birds around us. I cross out what I had and I write $50,000. Now my mother says, let's see what our mountain girl is worth to us. I'm beginning to catch on to their kind of thinking, so I suggest I'm worth $10,000, even though my little brother has begun to laugh. Don't underestimate yourself, my father says. Remember all those good lists you make for us? He's right, I do. I make a list of the best books each one of us has read, and a list of all the ones we want to read again. I also make a list of all the animals each one of us has seen and the ones we still want to see out in the wild, not in a zoo. Mine is a mountain lion. I've dreamed of him 4 times and I've already seen his track. My father chose a grizzly bear. My mother wants to see a wolf and hear it call. And my brother can't decide between a dolphin and a whale. I remember every one because I make the lists. They end up deciding I'm worth about $1 million. I say I don't think I am, but I write it anyway. In fact, it turns out that every one of us is worth $1 million. So we have $4,050,000. Then I realize I want to add $5,000 myself for the pleasure I have wandering in open country alone, free as a lizard, not following trails, not having a plan, just turning whatever way the wind turns me. They say that's certainly worth $5,000. So that makes $4,055,000. Finally, my brother says to put down $7 more for all the nights we get to sleep outside under the stars. We all say $7 doesn't seem to be enough. We talk him into making it $5,000. Now my paper says $4,060,000, and we haven't even started counting actual cash. To tell the truth, the cash part doesn't seem to matter anymore. I suggest it shouldn't even be on a list of our kind of riches. So the meeting is over. The rest of them have gone outside to see the new sliver of moon, but I'm still here at our nice homemade kitchen table, with one cookie left on my mother's good blue flowered plate, and I'm writing this book about us. I kind of pat the table, and I'm glad it's ours. In fact, I think the title of my book is going to be The Table Where Rich People Sit. Isn't that a great story? I loved reading how Mountain Girl discovered that what makes her rich is not money or stuff, but for her it was the experiences and the opportunities and the people in her life that made her rich. And guess what? We are all rich too. So I want you to stop for just a minute and close your eyes and think about something that makes you rich. Keep them closed and listen to me. Is it your family? Is it a friend? Maybe it's an ability, something that you can do that's really special, that makes you rich in creativity. You can open your eyes again. But we're going to create an art project drawing something that makes us rich. So for mine, and I'm going to teach you how to do this one, but I'm going to give you some other examples too. I decided that what makes me rich was my ability to create. And so in the same style as Peter Parnall, I drew long lines that take the eye on an adventure. And I'll show you how to do that in our artwork. Simple colors, but interesting and fun illustrations. But maybe that's not your particular brand of richness. Maybe for you, you're rich because there's a really cool tree outside of your window and you get to wake up to that beautiful art every day. Or maybe you're rich because of the love in your home and that you feel totally loved. Or maybe you're rich because of the family that you have. And you don't want to draw all of the people, maybe you just want to write the word families in your journal. Maybe you're rich because in your home, the food is the best food on the block. And the smells are so delicious that they draw people from miles around. So maybe you're rich because of what is on your table. Or maybe you're rich because your home is full of music, like being at the fanciest of concerts. Those are just some ideas of different ways we might be rich. So I want you to think of one of those, or maybe something that you come up with on your own. And I'll give you some pointers on how to draw in your journal and how to use the style of Peter Parnall to create a journal entry about how rich we are. Come draw with me. All you need is a black colored pencil and some markers to create this project. So gather your supplies and let's draw together. So I just want to show you one more time the illustrations of Peter Parnall and how simple but effective they are. In each one of his illustrations, he starts way on the edge of the page, and it's like his lines take your eye on an adventure that kind of blasts you off the other side of the page. See here how he's drawn really intricate mountains and canyons, but his lines take you on an adventure starting one side, kind of zigzagging across and shooting you off the other side of the page. Even these people, he starts here, the family here, we look across the table, and then we follow all the way to the dad's face, shooting us off the page. So when we draw today, whatever it is that you choose to draw, you really get to choose anything you want. We're still going to do some similar artwork to Peter Parnall. We're going to use strong black lines. Notice too that sometimes he'll double up his lines. So see here how he's got a couple of lines and a couple of lines. He does lots of interesting lines together. He also leaves a lot of white space. Notice that he didn't color his whole page. Even this pumpkin, he's only colored a portion of it orange and left some white space. So we're going to draw the same way. Look here, this is when Mountain Girl is seeing the sunrise for the first time, and he's drawn those sun rays so that they take us on an adventure off of the page. So my illustration looks like this. I opened up my journal after we did a little bit of piggy thankfulness from last week, and I decided that I want to take my eye from a pencil shooting off the page into color. And whatever you choose to draw, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to draw whatever your main subject is. So whether you decide to draw that you're thankful for your dog or your family or your soccer abilities or your home, whatever it is that you decide to draw, we're going to draw that thing pretty big, but we want the lines to come off the page, and then we want to do some neat designs to shoot them off so that our eye goes on an adventure as we create. So for this one, I'm going to just show you how I drew this, and you can draw along with me, or if you want to just watch but draw your own thing, you are welcome to do that. I'm going to turn the pages in my journal. Notice, did you know that I have two journals? I have this one that is my practice journal, so where I can work out the art projects, and this one where I demonstrate for you. So let's open up this so we can kind of look at it at the same time. Well, they probably won't fit on the screen at the same time. But this is a pretty easy drawing. It's a long pencil and some interesting lines coming off the pencil. I'm going to use a black colored pencil, and the reason I'm using colored pencil is so that when I go back and color it in with marker, the marker doesn't smear a black marker. So you could use a black colored pencil or a regular pencil or a Sharpie to do this part. But I'm going to start by just drawing. I'm going to start, remember how we're going to keep our eye coming off of the edge of the page? I'm going to just draw a line that meets in the middle and comes all the way across my page, because Parnall's illustrations took us on an adventure across 2 pages. I'm going to come over here and notice I'm not paying much attention to how straight or perfect my lines are. That's not important for this project. I'm going to do a V for the point of my pencil. And then where we sharpen our pencils right here sometimes gets kind of zigzaggedy. So I'm going to make some interesting zigzag lines for that part of my pencil. I'm going to color my pencil point black right here. And then I'm going to add, you know, on a regular pencil, how sometimes we'll have some lines going down it. You might be holding a pencil right now that has that. Or sometimes you can see, I don't know if you can see it on here. Oh, can you see how the light is reflecting right there? So sometimes we see light reflecting off of our pencil. So we're just going to draw some of those interesting lines coming down. And notice I'm holding my pencil way back here. You can hold it normally here if you want, but sometimes it's fun to hold it far away so we have a little bit less control and a little more surprise as to what our lines look like. Remember how Parnall had those kind of couple lines at a time? I'm going to do the same thing there. And then I'm going to take my eyes on an adventure. I am going to just draw some paths going off my page starting at the point of my pencil. And these, you guys can make them any way you want. Some can be thin. You can repeat some of those lines like Parnall did. Some might be wide paths. I'm going to do one here. And I think I'm going to do a little one right there. I might decide, sometimes Parnall does lines within his lines. And you know what's so great about this project is I'm going to start like this, and I could always add some more later if I decide that I want to. And that's how I'm going to draw my basic shapes. Then I'm going to go back in, and I've chosen colors in the same color family. I've chosen all sorts of warm colors, some reds, oranges, and pinks. Maybe you just choose whatever colors you want. And remember, we're going to color parts of the painting, parts of our creation, but we want to leave a lot of white space. So I left some white here. I might go back and maybe color that in, but I left some white there. Just color any way that you want to take your eye on an adventure. And this is one of those projects where I like to use the side of my marker to get some of those broad strokes colored in. You guys know I use the side of my marker a lot. And Parnall didn't use a lot of colors, did he? Maybe some of his illustrations he did, like the cover. There's just 2 shades of orange and a yellow, and look how effective it is. I do love the mountain scene with lots of different shades of purple and green and brown, but they're simple, right? It's like he just colored them in with marker, and look how effective that is to leave some of that white. That really makes those lines give some movement on our page. Not very much color on this page at all, but it still really tells a story. Again, with the sunrise, just some oranges and some reds. And here he's mixed the oranges and yellows with a little bit of blue. You can choose whatever colors you want. I'm going to keep coloring for a minute, and you can color yours. And now that I have my colors blocked in, I'm going to go back and I'm going to add some darker lines. Just kind of, I would call this reinforcing, so coming back over some of my lines. I might add some places where I would like some lines where I didn't have them. I think I'm going to add some of those doubled up lines here on my pencil tip. I'm going to color this in, but you can go back and you can add little places that maybe there are places that were left white when you were coloring, and you could just go ahead and outline those, and it's almost like a little bit of a beautiful oops. Like maybe we left that part blank, but we can go back and outline it like it was planned like that all along, and it just makes for a really interesting piece of art. Maybe you want to add some lines that you don't have, and then make some lines a little bit darker. That makes me think I want just a little bit more color down here. So I'm going to add just one more little stripe of color. And there we go, my Peter Parnall thing that makes me rich. So what is it that makes you rich? I sure wish that I could be there to see all of your Peter Parnall illustrations. But maybe you can share them with a classmate or share them with your family. Maybe there's something in your home that makes you feel rich as a king or queen. This would be a great time to thank your family for making you one of the richest people in the world. Well, I'm rich because of you, because you let me teach and think about art in new ways. You give me the opportunity to create new things and to read exciting books. So I am rich because of the students at Earl Warren and because of how much fun it is to teach you and to draw together even when we're apart.